One of the most misunderstood aspects of law, as far as the common man is concerned, is that we read something and we believe we understand what it's saying, and we never go look to see if the politicians or the secretary or whoever is in charge of that particular code section has provided us a specific definition for that particular word. And so it leads to a lot of confusing things going on where I could show you a piece of text and it says, every employee is supposed to have income taxes taken out of their wages. But if you don't understand that there is a special definition for wages, and there's a special definition for an employee, and there's a special definition for an employer, there's another definition for employment, it goes on and on and on. And if you don't spend the time to try to find those specific definitions, then you're going to end up getting yourself in trouble. You're going to end up thinking you know what's going on when in reality you have no idea. So I wanted to look at a couple things that the Supreme Court has said. One is in Colati versus Franklin, and it says it is axiomatic that the statutory definition of the term excludes unstated meanings of that particular term. In other words, if in law they have provided you with a list of things, you can't just go add other things to that particular list. They gave you that specific list for a purpose. Now, in the income tax code, it gets a little bit more confusing because they have a definition for the word includes where they say it is not exclusionary. So if they give you a list, there could be other things in that list. However, the other things have to be in the same class as all the other terms that are provided. So if I were to, for example, say that the definition for the United States includes the states in the District of Columbia, that's actually one of the definitions that they provide you. But they also provide you a definition that says the word state includes the District of Columbia. Well, because there's no other classification, there's no other family of things in that definition for state, you can't just go add the state of Georgia and the state of Florida to that list, because the class or the family of things that are in that particular definition are only federal government stuff. They're not related to the states. So you have to be very careful about just assuming that something is in a definition when it really isn't there. Another example from the Supreme Court is Gould versus Gould, where they say in the interpretation of taxing statutes, it is the established rule not to extend their provisions by implication. In other words, don't assume you know what something means beyond the clear import of the language used, or to enlarge their operations so as to embrace matters not specifically pointed out. Doubts are resolved against the government. So the Supreme Court has, and there's other cases as well, but the point is you've got to understand these definitions, and when they provide a definition, they are basically telling you right off the bat that there's something about that particular word that doesn't mean what you actually think it means. So just by the mere fact that they gave you a specific definition in the code should set off some alarm bells and let you know that there's something bigger going on here. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given you a definition. So when they give you a definition for an employee, for example, well, everybody knows what an employee is. That's kind of crazy that they would give you that definition. But I'm going to give you an example of why they give you that definition and why you have to use what they give you. So in this particular section, this is 26 USC 3121D, and it's related to FICA insurance. And FICA and unemployment both use this particular definition. And it says any officer, it is defining the word employee, and it says any officer or of a corporation or any individual who, under the usual common law rules applicable in determining the employer-employee relationship, has the status of an employee. So it would appear that any employee, although you'll see that that's not the case either, but it appears that any employee in your common law understanding of what employee is would apply here. But then right below in the payroll section, it provides in 26, and this is actually 26 CFR 313401C, it gives you a definition for employee. And in that definition, it says the term employee includes every individual performing services if the relationship between him and the person for whom he performs such services is the legal relationship of employer and employee. It sounds close to the same thing as what the other one said, except that it goes on and it says the term includes, so there's the word includes, and it says officers and employees, whether elected or appointed, of the United States, a state, territory, Puerto Rico, or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of any one or more of the foregoing. So you would, when you get down to the specifics of that definition, you can see that it's only federal employees that fit that definition. So where FICA and the unemployment tax don't think this because it's not true, but on first view, it looks like they might apply to every employee in the country, and actually, by that definition, every employee in the entire world. So that should key you in on something. There's more to understand about that definition, but it is clearly not the same thing as what's being said in the payroll tax section. So the way this kind of filters through is when you read a code, look in that particular code section that's in Title 26, find out if there is a definition section in there, and sometimes they give you the definition in the section that you're reading. They're all over the place on where they give you these definitions. And most of these definitions are non-definitions. They're, what is gross income? It's income. It's all income. Well, I mean, that's what gross income said. Why are you telling me it's all income? So, but the point is you start off in that section. If you can't find the definition in that section, then you look outside of that section within that same title. And it can't be another code section in that title, because that code section, if there's a definition within it, like for example, FICA gives you a definition for employee. Well, if I go to a different part of the code and there's no definition there for employee, I can't go back to the FICA section to get the definition. I would have to go outside of that. In the case of income tax, it's 7701, gives you global definition. So if it wasn't defined in a particular section, then you would go to a global section and see if you can define it there. And in the event that you can't find the word anywhere in there with a definition, then it's okay to go get Black's Law, look it up in there, or get a Webster dictionary and look it up in there and get an idea of what that particular term means. But every single word that you have any inkling that may be a word game that they're playing, you've got to go look up the word. I've talked to attorneys. One of them I got into a little bit of a debate with, but he pretended that, in all of his 50 years of practicing law, he's never had to go look up a word to see what it meant. And all he's telling me is that he's a very bad attorney, because all you got to do is go to the Supreme Court and listen to any case you want to, and they will talk for hours about what a particular word means. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that you understand what something is what's being said. Always go look it up, and always try to find the definition within that section. You cannot use definitions like Brandon Joe Williams loves to do. He'll go grab a definition from a completely different section of code and pretend that that's what that word means, when in reality that particular section of code was talking about something else specifically, and they've given it a definition related to whatever the topic is. So you can't just randomly go grab definitions. You've got to do it in the section that you're actually trying to interpret, and it is critical that you take that to heart.